under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Open Meetings Law, the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted on the bulletin board on the east wall of the conference room, and a copy is in the official meeting book. Roll call, Brandy.
Janet Mueller,
Present.
Brad Lannis, absent. Tom Kelly, absent. Tori Copeland.
Here.
Eric Paterka,
Present.
Randy Busher, present.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on to approve the consent items number 5A, approval of minutes, a regular meeting of 6/17/24, special meeting of 5/28/24, and 5B, the approval of general funds bill in the amount of $386,776.58.
Motion.
Okay. Got a first, do I have a second? Roll call.
Tori Copeland,
Yes.
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Mueller.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 6 is the treasurer's report, and Shad emailed me the numbers. Receipts are at $1.02, should be at 83.33. Expenditures are at 64.30, should be at 91.67. Item number 7 is recognition of visitors and public comment. If anyone would like to address the board, this is the appropriate time to do so, or if you'd rather comment on a specific agenda item, you may do so at this time. Please stand and state your name and address for the record. Individuals may speak only one time and must limit comments to 5 minutes. If there's more than 6 individuals who wish to speak, the 30 minutes will be divided equally between the number of speakers. If you're planning to speak about personnel or a student matter involving an individual, please understand that the district has a complaint policy procedures to resolve such complaints concerns. Board members will generally not respond to any questions you ask or comments about individual staff members or students. This is a public meeting for the conduct of business. Comments from the audience while others are speaking will not be tolerated. The board will not act on any matter unless it is a published agenda item. I want to welcome everybody for coming. Do we have anybody who wants to speak during public comment?
My name is Alyssa Mason. My address is 1220 North Line Road here in Sutherland, and I was just here just to see if the board had an update on the playground. I got to be on the playground committee over a year ago. The playground was supposed to be done last year before school started, and it still isn't this school year, I'm assuming. So I just wanted to see what you guys had.
I can give you an update what I know. I spoke with the contractor today. It started out rough and rocky, nothing but a bunch of excuses when they started. But anyway, we are where we're at. Dirt work was finished today. It's told that the sprinklers will be getting installed soon and then sod. It's gonna have a little bit more final grade. They did have a little test of the drainage system. We got 3/4 or close to an inch of water the other day, and it seemed to dissipate it well. So the swings are starting to be installed today. The concrete was poured, a little bit of a sidewalk, and where the posts are set for the fence to separate the big kids from the little kids. So.
Yeah, as I walked up today, there was some progress.
So as far as the landscaping contractor, which was Roger Lathrop and Gail Hopping, they're done. It's now in school's hands to get a hold or get the sprinklers installed and the solids. So it's gonna be pushed. I'm hoping. And even if that sod will get installed, that's gonna be pushing it to how much traffic can be installed. Yes, it should have been done this spring. But it's been one thing after another, rains and stuff, but in my opinion, we had very more rain or less rain than we normally do. But we are limited who will bid on the project, limited who will do it, and you're at their mercy. It's kind of the standard operating procedure for contractors.
Thank
So,
you.
yes, I think the rest of it looks pretty good. I think that's the rubberized surfacing looks good. Our fingers crossed. It is a good warranty on it. Suppose it was new material, it was brought, and not the stuff that got frozen. So I think it's crunch time. It needs done. But now it's kind of on the school's hands, so we'll see how fast RC and crew can get that done. Right now was not the ideal time to lay sod. And it really won't be. Because that would right now have to be watered every 15 minutes. Or burn up, and so it's very expensive, so I don't. Most of the playground will be operational by. School time, the grass area, I don't know, I have my doubts.
Thank you. Anybody else have public comment? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to 8A, or let's go into action items in the 8A is absences. Do I have a motion to approve the absences, Shad Lantis, from the June 17, 2024 meeting?
Removed,
I got it first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes, Janet Mueller,
Yes,
Tori Copeland.
yes,
motion carried, and we will have to leave the other one till next meeting so that
Tom
we have,
Kelly's,
what's that?
Tom Kelly's,
The first two was done, was last meeting. We're dropping clear down to the June. The May's was
Okay.
already done. So, but with Eric, the next one is for Eric Paterka for the
okay, I
June
didn't know why you
17th.
skipped the top two. Okay.
Yeah, they were done at the last meeting. So that's why I did those two. So we will hold that last one over until we have more members here. Let's go on to 8B, the door bids. Again, this is gonna be tabled. Mr. Clausen fell ill Friday. So the grounds committee wasn't able to meet again to go over all the door bids. So hopefully maybe this next week. Everybody well, when Shad gets back from finals, we can all have everybody get together and go through those two bids. So let's go on to 8C, which is the evaluation instruments for teachers and principals. I'm gonna turn that over to both of you.
Yes. So when I was looking at, oh, is that? When we were looking at the current evaluation tool, that we were using here, it was pretty dated. And it wasn't necessarily aligned to NDE's most recent recommendations. So we are both familiar with the CE tool. That's what a majority of districts use to evaluate. So that would be our recommendation, is just to update the tool. It's nothing foreign to teachers. It's language that we use. We'll train teachers on it at the beginning of the year to make sure that they know the tool they're being evaluated with.
And the
all
expectations,
of the things.
it's set up on a rubric, so you know what classifies as basic, and you can't always be an exemplary all the time, you can't function in that. So, where a teacher, if they get proficient in or above, as administrators, we're happy with that.
And with that too is the corresponding seed evaluation tool for administrators. So we would
Yes.
also update the
Yes.
tool used to evaluate.
Right.
Allison
And I would like to find the classified, I haven't found that yet.
It's not a.
Now, do
seed
these
one.
have to be approved by NDE?
They don't have to be, no.
No.
Districts you can use the tool that you see fit. It would be best practice to use the tool that NDE suggests. That's why the majority of districts do. I was actually surprised that ours hadn't been updated for quite some time, it seemed. It was a big project that a lot of districts undertook 4 or 5 years ago.
Right,
To adopt the new tool that was more aligned with best practices, because they change as research, we changes every year.
Any more questions from the board? If not, do I have a motion to approve the evaluation instruments for the teachers and the principals?
Moved.
Got it first. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Okay, make sure I have it right since Alicia's not here. For the teachers and the principals.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
and in that is the plan of assistance and the plan of improvement.
Okay.
So any evaluatory document is housed in there.
correct. Can you use those if they're at a basic level? To give them some coaching?
Okay, got it.
Thank you, yep.
Okay, roll call.
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes, Janet Mueller,
Yes,
Tori Copeland.
yes,
motion carried. 8D is revised master school calendar. Again, I will turn it over to both of you.
Yes, so first and foremost, we didn't make a lot of changes. It looks very different because
Yes.
we reformatted it. Just to make it more user friendly for parents and for patrons. When I was looking at the previously approved calendar, yeah, I was struggling to follow it because months weren't aligned. So it's reformatted to hopefully be more user friendly, keep dates within the months. The previous calendar had the 1 o'clock dismissal for PD days were scattered along the calendar, so it wasn't necessarily on a consistent day. And I worried that that would confuse parents. If we're gonna do that, I'd rather it at least be consistent, so parents would know Wednesdays are the day that if we're gonna have a PD early dismissal,
Right.
that's the day I know it's going to be,
Unless it falls, like if you look at
the quarters.
parent teacher conferences, the end of the quarter, some of those things.
And those are outside of those PD days, and those were already scheduled.
Right.
I didn't want to mess with it too much because I didn't know
Mhm.
tradition, you know?
Mhm.
So the major changes were really formatting, making sure that those PD 1 o'clock out days were aligned.
Mhm.
And then we shifted a teacher workday from the day before Christmas break to the day before we return from Christmas break. It just makes it more conducive for true professional development because we'll be going over benchmark data from the winter and
Right.
we can't do that if it's the day
So
after school gets out. So
it still has the same amount of minutes. It has 3 more in-service days, but it still meets the requirements of the State Department.
And that's what, if I'm understanding in the previous conversations, the reason that you did add is that we had to get those
10.
To satisfy Rule 10,
Yes,
correct?
Rule 10, you have to have
10
10 staff
professional
development days.
And was any staff able to get input from this? Were you able to share that? with the
yes,
Teacher
so
union?
I not with the union, but at the high school end, we talked about this
Yes,
when
and
we
the
went
other-
over, yeah, you probably talked about it briefly too. So obviously we are in crunch time trying to
Mhm.
get all of this done. So we both touched base with our respective staffs during our handbook meetings. On the high school side, everyone was good with it. It made more sense to move that PD day. The only concern, and I think why they scheduled that, they had that in-service day for the Friday after kids got out before Christmas break was we host a wrestling meet. I don't want to waste a PD day to do that anyways. I'd rather just rally the troops and make sure that we're supporting activities rather than use a Rule 10 PD day to do that. So everyone was good with it. I haven't heard any concerns, but.
For the union, is everything,
The one thing that I see that is gonna make a lot of people unhappy is coming back on that Friday. I get what you're saying with, makes more sense. But we had changed that so that everybody had an extra weekend.
Before coming back.
Yeah,
It's
All
on
right.
January 3rd.
then if anybody has plans, they're cutting them short to come back on a Friday.
Yes.
Can't really do anything if you've still got family. Things like my family doesn't usually get together until after the new year. That's the only thing that I see that's gonna be what a lot of concerns were when we first,
We're doing the calendar.
Mhm.
I would just almost prefer them to not even, I mean, we could. It's just so tight in time too.
Could recount minutes and see how it comes out,
Yeah,
but. let's
and I
see
think it would be a mixed
December.
bag. There were secondary staff that actually preferred that because then they got to come back, get classrooms ready and then take the weekend before they came back. I will let you guys. And I totally understand where you're coming from too, Jewel. I just don't know
And
what's more
you're
convenient.
not gonna make everybody happy.
Yeah, I hear
That's the way
ya.
it's gonna go.
We definitely don't want to upset tradition in doing this by any means. I just want to make sure that if it's a Rule 10 day, that we are using it accordingly.
And how many student days did we have last time versus this time?
Thank-
The same.
Same number of student days.
Because
We
if
didn't
you-
mess with
If
that.
you have kids, and something on the secondary end that we plan to do if the board does approve this is focus study hall. So it gives us, kids have access to teachers or to staff during a section of that in-service time. which means we can count it as student hours as long as students have access to staff. So like districts that do a 1:30 out every week, that is, you count it as a full day because they have access.
So we went from, sorry, I'm tracking.
You're
So
fine.
we're doing 2 Wednesday early outs. And
Yes,
before, was
yes.
it just one?
It was just
Wednesday early
one.
out a month?
Yeah, and they had,
It was scattered, like she said.
Yeah,
Like it was
it-
just
it-
more random?
it was hard
There
to
was
all
a Friday,
over.
there was a Tuesday, there was a Monday.
can
but-
remember.
So just having it on Wednesday is better for the
Make it better
family.
for parents.
Yep, okay.
Trying to get it to,
And then on these early outs in police, this was something that went a couple of years ago, and then I don't remember how it really went last year. For these early outs, and I wish Ted was here. Is our buses running at 1 or are they running at the normal 3, whatever time buses run at 3? Sorry, I don't know exactly that time.
yeah, I don't know.
And if they're going to run, or they're gonna run the normal time, do we have something educational for those kiddos that rides the buses? Like had been first proposed to us?
I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's
They
a
run
good
at
ask.
1 o'clock. This year with the sailor crew or the after school program, they didn't run till 3:45. Because the kids that run the after school program for parents keep it regular time. But generally on the 1:30 outs or 1 o'clock outs, they run at 1 o'clock.
The buses did,
The buses. do,
Okay.
yeah.
and that works the best.
Yep,
That's right.
I helped fill in on those Wednesdays and we'd run at 1, or if it was a regular, we'd go 3:45 at the end of the after school program. So like that was tough this year because we'd have junior high kids that ride the bus that got out at 1 or too old to do the after school program, and then they'd have to sit around and wait until it was time to leave at
Yeah.
3:45. So that was one thing that was consistent this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would think, I guess for input, I would think if there's any way they could not have that January 3rd come back. As a former person who worked that type of schedule, I'd have a fit about coming back for work day, not an educational day. Onto the vacation and taking off actually 3 days of a vacation.
that makes sense.
Cause that one day counts as 3 days,
I
not
think-
as a block, cause as a, I
Yes.
always like blocks. And I-
I'm wondering, Tori, if we could move it, because we have to have the day, because it's Rule 10, and we have to have 10 professional development days. I'm wondering if we can't
Can you move it the 20th?
move it back to that Friday. I'll
Yeah,
just miss
because-
a lot of, my worry with doing that is if I do that, a lot of my staff will be helping
With
wrestling.
wrestling,
And I will be
yeah,
helping with the
yeah,
wrestling.
no.
meet. So it's not really conducive to
No.
run.
You guys gotta do what you have. to do.
Yeah.
I see what you're
As a-
saying.
as an employee,
Always.
Yeah,
that's when you have wrestling.
Previously have done a full PD day in January, I don't know if that helps or not, and that was a day that we did a lot of data.
Find a day in January. Yeah, but
Could
like
you
the
turn-
8th. Well, I don't want to break up that week.
I just move it to, I almost think we move it to either the 6th and have students return on the 7th.
7th,
So we would open with a PD day on the 6th.
yep.
now,
And then
I don't know if this is
students
possible,
back
could we
7th.
tentatively approve as it is, and then next month.
We make a
Amend
change.
it.
We can admit it, and because that's not gonna throw any parents into a tizzy
No.
6 months ahead of time.
No,
That-
You can-
But at least you can have your
Back
calendar.
our last day then?
no, because it's already included in
So we
those.
could have a teacher in
days.
service day on
Okay,
January
have
6th.
that flexibility
be
to
good.
use that day wherever we want it
Kids come
without
back on the
changing it.
7th.
Well, I was just curious though, because then it's gonna take away a student day. Cause the 6th would have been a
And
student
we're-
day.
From our calculations,
We're open.
we're over, I mean, by hours, when you break it down into seat minutes, we're significantly, we have a lot of wiggle room. But I mean, you're right, it would take a student day.
But,
We can
but
afford to take a student day, but
if we approve this tentatively, you guys could do your calculations and make sure everything is on, up and up.
and it would give us a
And
chance
since
to,
reevaluate
Yeah.
stuff, but at least if we could approve this, that you'd have your August dates and then, and it can
Perfect.
change.
And
Let's
keeping
say-
in mind though, it allows them to have that Friday off before Christmas. So it's really kind of what do you want more? Do you want more time before Christmas or after
No,
Christmas?
because you're right, they're actually given that day,
Cause they can move it.
Cause
that
they
way.
gave them one day before Christmas.
so it's six
Just,
of one out.
just throwing that out there, cause that's a long break too for
2.5
kids.
weeks.
It's a good size.
Mhm.
I think it comes down to crunching the numbers again
Yeah.
for every month. I
Yeah.
do.
So that's, I'm
Right.
okay with that too,
Thank you.
Tori, if you guys want to approve it as is, that'll give us a chance to talk to our
Okay.
teams too, because we haven't,
Understood.
they haven't been in the building,
I work
so.
with-
Yeah.
And we've changed the calendar before, or something else can come up, at least nobody's gonna be in a crunch. If we approve it now, then you guys can
Perfect.
run the numbers. So I will move to approve the revised 24-25 master calendar.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Got a first and second, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Miller,
Yes,
Tori Copeland, Eric Paterka.
Yes.
a motion carried. 8E is the threat assessment policy 3039. And KSB had sent several recommendations for the threat assessment policy. They're all in the attachment. And visiting with the administration, they recommend option 2, which is where the superintendent, and let me pop into that, so that I'm not misspeaking here. The superintendent is the primary investigator and decision maker in this threat assessment.
That was recommended by the administration.
Yes.
Okay.
So, do I have a motion to approve the KSB, the motion, policy 3039, the threat assessment policy with option 2? I got a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
My only discussion would be,
Mhm.
option 3 is if you guys move with a policy to make your team a law enforcement unit, then you have to have option 3. And like, so one bleeds into the other.
Okay.
So I guess that would be,
That's good to know.
I don't mind approving option 2, but I think when you guys approve an SRO policy, we may have to go back and approve option 3.
Okay.
Because you guys will all be considered a law enforcement unit at that point, which means you can freely share with the SRO.
So do we want to?
That makes
approve
sense.
Option 3 now? And not come back to it, because the SRO, unless it falls through on the sheriff's department side, is
We're
a
good.
go.
Yeah, but we'll have to approve a policy for an SRO, so I guess at that time, we could.
We'll come back with
Yes,
that one.
that's right.
Yeah, and maybe Mr. Clausen had a different reason for that, I just.
That makes sense.
You almost have to, because
Yeah.
once you adopt 3054, then that's the,
That would make sense.
but we can tackle it when we.
That makes
Make a
sense.
note of that though, as well.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Tori Copeland.
Yes. Yes.
Eric Paterka.
Yes.
Yep. Randy Busher, yes.
And
Janet
me,
Miller.
yes. I was expecting me to be next. Certified handbook.
You want me to go over those?
Oh, I'm good with-
The
I
certified.
have 2 on my own too. Do you?
The what?
I said I have.
Oh,
2
the
on my own.
certified, sure.
We didn't make a whole lot of changes to the
No.
certified.
We worked on this one, like she did part and I did part just because there were numerous handbooks. But I didn't make any different changes for the district besides what KSB
Recommended
recommended and aligning to policies.
projection map policy was added.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was just like updated the threat assessment policy to match what was going through tonight.
And taking out Rule 10,
Yeah.
putting in the complaint process.
So really just procedural stuff that
Yeah,
we were aligned to policy.
you're right. Added 12-month period for family medical leave, that was KSB. Really?
Did you guys have any questions on that one?
Oh, I guess the projection maps. They made a law on that you certain projection maps in the building, but the teachers don't use the physical maps, so we didn't have to worry about that.
Any more questions on this? If not, do I have a motion to approve the certified handbook with changes?
So moved.
I got a first, do I have a second? A second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Mueller.
Yes.
Tori Copeland.
Yes.
Motion carried. Let's go to 8G, the high school handbook.
All right, this one was more of a labor of love. Did a lot of work realigning it to KSB, making sure it was updated. So a lot of the changes are procedural. Met with high school staff to go over anything that was district specific. Really just reinforcing that anything in this is the way we do things, so we need to make sure that it reflects the way we do things. Any cell phone policy we updated, I didn't change a whole lot in the way the policy, I liked the or the procedure. I did take out, what I found when I was going through a lot of the different procedures in the handbook is it would say, and this is a prime example of that, cell phones are not permitted in classrooms unless the classroom teacher says it's okay, which contradicts itself. If we're not gonna have cell phones in classrooms, we're just not gonna have cell phones in classrooms. So I did take out the, turn it into a designated teacher's space or use at teacher discretion. All of our team was on board with that. Takes away the question of it. And that's something that we're gonna hammer really hard this year collectively.
No cell phones in the classrooms, is what you're saying?
Yep, no cell phones in the classrooms.
So that means smart watches as well.
Yes, and AirPods.
I will say that the previous administration said they were gonna hammer hard on that. That was just lip service.
Yeah, so we could go through all this, but it will just take some time for you guys to see our consistency.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I support how the policy is, but if they say it's gonna be that way, it needs to be that
Yes,
way,
it
not
does.
just say, well. Okay.
Yes, it does, I agree.
Absolutely. First offense stayed the same. I did add that the detention is served with the principal, not the teacher. A lot of our teachers coach, and that's hard for them. And we want to encourage them to support activities and to coach those activities. And then all other offenses, it was an in-school suspension, 2 days of in-school suspension. I don't love the thought of in-school suspension, it's just avoidance. So that's where we would capitalize on some of those 1 o'clock days for focused study hall, where they would, it's similar to a Thursday school, where they would spend a couple hours instead of getting to go home at 1, they're gonna spend a couple hours in the office. So that was kind of, I mean, it was unanimous among our team when we talked about that. Updated dress code to align with KSB, no major changes. Complaint procedure was updated. Open lunch, typically, and I had to gather from staff what was done consistently, because what was in the handbook wasn't necessarily what the practice was, so it was a lot of piecing together. We switched being able to drive during open campus. Sometimes they could do it third quarter and fourth, seniors could drive third and fourth quarter. Sometimes it was just fourth quarter. I just changed it to fourth quarter. It's a privilege. You can't have any tardies coming back to sixth period, and you can't have any infractions over the lunch hour. So if they can do those 2 things for 3 quarters, they have earned a fourth quarter privilege to drive. Everything else is mostly just procedural, you guys. I added a lot of stuff that wasn't in there that really needed to be in there. Reasonable suspicion testing wasn't in there, so we had to add that. Video surveillance and photographs. A big thing that we'll talk about, and I'll leave you guys with this one, is KSB did a lot of updating to add deep fakes to a lot of our policy lines, especially videoing and photography. So that's something that's new. I had to look it up this year because I hadn't heard of it before, but that's something we'll talk to students a lot about, is using AI to falsify images is a criminal offense. And not only is it a criminal offense, but it's disciplined pretty heavily within our student handbooks too. So that was new. Did you guys have any questions on that one? All right.
Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve the high school handbook with changes?
So moved.
I got a first. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Tori Copeland,
Yes.
Eric Pacheco,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes, Janet Mueller.
Yes. Motion carried. 8H is activities handbook and overview of proposals.
All right, same thing. Well, this one was a little bigger of a project. There wasn't an activities handbook. There was 3 pages added to the bottom of the student handbook, which we needed to change badly. So I created an entirely new activities handbook, aligned it to KSB, aligned it to NSAA. So a lot of what's in here is new stuff that you guys probably haven't seen because there wasn't an actual handbook. Updated coaches and sponsors directory. I added in the NSAA eligibility rules. Academic eligibility, attendance at practice and contests. That's all KSB stock stuff, but it needs to be in there. Took out some stuff that was district specific that was in that 3 pages, like dances. It said you couldn't wear blue jean shorts or t-shirts. I'm not kicking a kid out if they show up to homecoming in blue jeans. I think most do. So I removed that out of there, changed the age of guest stipulation to 19 or younger. That was a ask of our high school team. They wanted to see that happen.
What was
So-
it before?
20.
Cause I know that'd been backed off before too.
Yeah, it was 20, and that just gets a little weedy. I'm comfortable with 19. I'm comfortable,
tonight at 19.
more than comfortable with 19. We added our insurance policy. I did add some major additions in terms of the relationships between parents and coaches and sponsors, the parents' role in interscholastic athletics, and the responsibilities of spectators. I think it's just good stuff to have in there, as we'll go over it with our parents and our teams and all of the things. It's good reminders about how Sutherland Public Schools does activities, whether you're a spectator, an athlete, or a coach. And our coaches appreciated that addition as well. I think that really elaborated on discipline in terms of activities, aligned it with KSB. We updated the prohibition on drugs and alcohol that was there. It was kind of confusing the way that it was written before. Self-reporting is within 48 hours rather than it was the next school day is what was on there. Or it was within 48 hours. We changed it to no later than noon the next school day. That's hard on a Friday. That means kids would have to be trying to source coaches out on a Sunday. And it sounds finicky, but what we say we do in here, we do in here. So we want to make sure that it's right.
What about the first day of Christmas break?
It would be noon by the first school day that we come back. They would have to notify us. Yep.
I'm just saying, it'll
Yeah.
come up.
Yep, and it will, and
I
inevitably
guarantee.
it will, but as long as they're, but also, I also don't want coaches chasing discipline during
Okay.
their Christmas break.
Say that.
As long as the kiddo reports as soon as by noon, the day he sees his teachers and his coaches or her teachers and her coaches. I think I feel comfortable considering that as self-reporting. First violation, I just reword, it's really the same thing. I just reworded some of it. If you guys looked over that. Same with the prohibition on tobacco. I just changed the wording a little bit to make sure it added nicotine, vapes, all of the trending new avenues that kiddos access that on. Those were the really big ones. We did put the clause in for the parameter of when the activities handbook can be implemented. So KSB gives you 3 options. It's calendar year, school year, or sports season, meaning that, let's say you selected sports season, the activities handbook would only pertain to that student during the season in which they were participating. I don't know a district that uses that one. Most districts do a school year. That's what I'm comfortable with and used to. Again, we don't necessarily, it doesn't mean we can't, it just means we don't have to. It gives us a little gray area when it comes to the summer. There's a lot of questions and conversations around how equitable it is to chase discipline in the summer, especially because a kiddo that makes a poor decision outside of the state, and we could potentially not know about it, but a kiddo that makes a poor decision in the community, it's hard to keep that equitable for kids. So that was a good conversation within our coaches, and I think they made a good decision, and we made a good decision. So any questions on that?
Thank you for putting
Yeah.
this together. It was needed.
Yeah,
We've had some parents that were frustrated with the lack of, and then some inconsistencies with how it's handled. So I appreciate that. Had to be a lot of work. So
Yeah.
thank you.
We've been without one of these forever.
the most recent one that I could find was 2019, and it wasn't that was out of the student handbook, so it wasn't a separate. Mhm.
But thank you.
Any more
That was
questions
mine.
for them? Do I have a motion then?
Yes, I'm moved to 24-25 activities handbook.
I have a second, Brandy, thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Mueller,
Yes,
Tori Copeland.
Yes,
Eric Pacheco.
Yes.
motion carried. 8I is the elementary handbook.
I went through, aligned it to KSB. Also, I added law 79-265.01. It was passed a couple years ago where you can't suspend preschools through second graders. So I added that to the handbook. Also, I added under the parental involvement, I corrected the definition of what a IRIP is, the individual reading improvement plan. They had it connected to an IEP, and IRIPs are Title I regular education students. They do not overlap with special ed. So I made sure that definition was correct. Multiculturalism is on one of the Rule 10 assurances, so I defined that, and I made a Google Doc for that for the teachers to work on. I added candy, gum, and food category. Administrator will have the right to inspect the water container, because if it's not clear, you can't necessarily tell what's in it. So I did add that. And then if you look at the excessive absenteeism, they've added some more categories. So nowadays, basically, the only way you're gonna be excessive absenteeism is if you are truly not coming to school, skipping school. They've added, vacations are excused. They've added, mental health, physical health, but there's 3 categories that were added to that.
is that KSB's recommendation or is that coming from the state?
KSB, well,
Which
that's
comes
coming
from the
from the
state.
state,
Because the
yes,
state made this big
yes,
hubbub about this.
Right.
Were we backing off of that?
So
now?
KSB says you can choose from any of that
Mhm.
list, but you don't have to pick all
Yes.
that list. The
Mhm.
changes to the legislation is mental health.
yes,
So technically, if a family went on vacation,
right.
you could still file a truancy. You could
Right.
still file a truancy if,
Mhm.
like, the only things are medical and mental health
Right.
that you really can't file a truancy. They
Correct.
added things you can deem as
Mhm.
excused.
But I also think if a family, they plan ahead of time before their vacation and kids get their work done, that shouldn't go against them. So there is some flexibility there.
I mean, the policy has become, the statute has become a little bit more flexible. It used to
Yes.
say you have to report to the county attorney any day over 20.
Yeah, now it's
Not
may or
medical.
shall.
Now it's may or shall,
Which
which
is
gives some
interesting.
discrepancy.
So mayor shall means you do not have to report at all now.
Correct.
If you say mayor may,
Mhm. Yeah, that's
That means no.
KSB.
That would
KSB.
worry me.
I understand, but they worded
That's
it
what it
that way.
says,
This
may or
may
shall.
is no longer required.
Gray area.
But I
That's-
would tell you with our county attorney, if she finds out there's a kid who hasn't been in school, especially elementary, and hasn't been reported, she's gonna be displeased.
Well, I'm glad to
Like,
hear
she's
that there's a
pretty-
county attorney as
She's
such.
very hands-on.
Good.
She files on truancies. She files on parents. She's very
Good.
proactive when it
Yeah.
comes to truancy, so she will work
That's
Like
great.
if you have a concern, she's gonna help you out.
Right, and we have steps as a school that we have to take before we do that. You
But
know,
will she
we
be
should
able
be
to file?
calling parent.
Since it says May,
Yes, that, I
May
mean,
report, not file.
correct?
So
But so you still have to have the days, the school just doesn't have to report, okay? Yeah,
Right.
if they've entered that, I'll go back there, if it says May, does not have to be done.
doesn't
No.
have to be, but you can.
best practice would say.
Right.
I agree with.
Yeah.
I'm very about truancy. This is hard for me to realize because I went to school and never once did my parents take us anywhere that we weren't going to be back for school. That was never discussed. It was not an option. Now, people take vacations all the time, take their kids out of school. I don't get it.
Right, correct.
We have all summer.
Right, the definition of weapons and firearms was changed to firearms. The other big thing too is basically, there is a lot of good information. I used the 2021 handbook and updated, that was the one I could find. And I like the PBIS levels in here. It's going to be the implementation of what the handbook says. That's what needs to happen, which I think there's been some wavering on that the last few years, so. I think there are some really good things in here. So the teachers and I spoke and we will go according to the PBIS flow chart in the different levels of discipline.
Were we gonna approve, I know the complaint procedure was.
That was already, it just wasn't taken out. We're just doing the elementary handbook.
Yes, no, I mean,
Okay.
just a new policy for,
And you
Like-
approved that.
And you did that
month.
last
that was last month.
That's.
I was like, I knew they, like, I could see you guys changed it in both
Yes,
the handbook, so making
Yeah.
sure we changed the policy.
And it is, yeah, we changed it in the classified also.
Okay, perfect. And we approved the policy last month.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yeah, we went back and double checked all of that this
Couldn't
last week.
remember which ones we
Yes.
approved.
He went through them real fast, so
I know.
Okay, so any more discussion on the elementary handbook? If not, do I have a motion to approve with changes?
Yes,
I will second that. Any more discussion? Roll call,
Janet Mueller,
yes.
Tori Copeland,
yes,
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes.
Motion carried, thank you. The next one is a classified handbook, and there is a note in here that says Alicia and I revised the classified handbook with updates that KSB sent out. As I said earlier, Ted, had a family crisis and was not able to come tonight. So I'm hoping everybody has taken the time to review some, and when I'm glancing through it, I'm just mainly seeing emails being changed.
We changed the title 10 complaint process on Friday.
Okay,
There, I looked over it too. There,
okay.
so.
just procedural.
Right, procedural.
So with that being said, do I have a motion to approve the classified handbook with changes?
So moved.
I got a first, do I have a second?
I'll
Oh,
second.
okay, Brandy. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Tori Copeland,
yes,
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Mueller,
Yes, motion carried. The next item is 8K resignations. We have none. And then my, where am I at?
AI.
Yep, AI option, yeah, actually it's option students is, there's none there. So we're gonna go into the elementary principal report.
Sure, and we can talk about how we want to do this. I guess what I'm used to doing is setting goals every year and then, some things I'm working on. And then, because Alicia and I were talking about how it'd be nice to have some of that in the minutes, because she said she was getting from the community, it'd be nice to have more information in the minutes. I'm just communicating that. Worked on the handbooks. I'm working on a adopt a school program where we connect businesses with a classroom. And then the classrooms will reach out to that businesses once a month, go visit it. So I've been working on that, talking to some business people. I've been working on that. I've been working on preschool. And we've been working on some special ed students and para schedules. We've been tweaking those, so those are done and shared, but we had to tweak another one today. And we were talking about lunch and recess, so a lot of scheduling. I've been working also on the open house and then beginning of the year procedures, what we're gonna do in the morning when the kids come, so on and so forth. So we've been pretty busy.
High school principal report.
Oh, kind of the same thing. Excited to actually be in here, and it was great to get coaches together and get our teaching team together and kind of hear their voices. I knew we'd probably have some work to do, but I've been blown away at the kindness and how helpful every single person has been, from the custodial staff to Alicia and my 8,000 million questions to our teachers. And I really appreciate that. And there's something special about Sutherland Public Schools for sure. Handbooks were a labor of love. Glad to have those done. Really just getting stuff ready to kick off a school year. So a lot of the pre-service agenda stuff after tonight we'll be able to get out. I know teachers and staff are ready to get that in their hands so they know what to expect in a couple short weeks. On the high school end, we're looking at how we can support our three main goals this year, which is activities, climate and culture, and teaching and learning. So how do we promote activities? How do we get kids involved in activities and showing up to activities? How do we get community at activities? So we're brainstorming all of those things. Climate and culture is going to be rule one for us this year. Making sure that we create a culture of excellence, and we have very high expectations of kids, of ourselves. And we conduct business accordingly, I should say. And then teaching and learning, we have some academic goals that we're going to try and hammer really hard. We're honing those down now, making plans to schedule assessments. We'll do baseline data first full week of school at the high school level. So we have some good data to go off of and goals set off of. So just putting the puzzle pieces together to paint a pretty picture and vision for kickoff of the year. Thank you.
The next item is 10 board reports. Any of our board members have anything that they'd like to report or bring to? Okay, superintendent's report. Again, Mr. Klassen was unable to attend. So the next item is our next meeting on August 19th. For those of us that is here, does that work for everybody?
I think we just need to set the date. Doesn't matter whether it works.
Yeah, that's too hard.
So do I have a motion to approve April 19th? Or August, April, my goodness, no, exactly, boy, I was looking at an A and you know where my mind going. August 19th, 2024 at 7 o'clock. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Item first, do I have a second? Also move. Roll call.
Eric Paterka,
Yes.
Randy Busher, yes. Janet Mueller,
Yes.
Tori Copeland.
Yes.
Motion carried and meeting adjourned at 7:48.